Here with Melissa Pope, who
Yeah.
is a PE teacher. She is in the Ithaca, New York area, which is central New York. And Melissa was a college friend of mine who has gone on to bigger and better things. And she's going to talk to us today about what it's like to be a PE teacher and the highs and lows. So, the first question, Melissa, is how did you decide to be a PE teacher and what was your education like to get to that point?
Well, at Ithaca College, I was actually in the exploratory program. So I tried out a few different things, including some sport management, sport media classes. And one of the teachers there kind of helped direct me and realize I was more into the teaching aspect versus the business aspect of sport. And so it just kind of fell into place when I was a sophomore and I declared, and the rest is history.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, so what was your education like when you did declare for PE teacher? What were things you had to do and your expectations and did you have to take any additional education after you finished your bachelor's degree?
Well, I declared, I would say, a little late in the game, so I really had to cram everything in there. There are a lot of requirements for the PE degree, at least at Ithaca, and a lot of those include health and fitness classes, uh, anatomy and physiology, that type of stuff, as well as teaching theory and methods, and curriculum development and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot to cover, and at least in New York, all teachers, in order to maintain their professional certification, have to get their master's degree. I don't think it matters what field they get it in, but most teachers will go along with the same. So I actually have my master's in physical education and coaching pedagogy from Portland, which I don't talk about much.
Yes, Ithaca and Cortland continue to be severe rivals, so we don't mention that. Uh, what is something when you were in school that you wish somebody had maybe told you about being a PE teacher that would have just been nice to know? Maybe it wouldn't have necessarily changed your decision, but just something you weren't expecting once you started your career.
One facet that I wish was focused on more was kind of like classroom management. It really is a huge piece of any teaching, no matter what subject you teach. And you do go through some of those classes, but you really don't know what it's like until you get in the classroom. And you learn from others, but you really need to develop your own style. And how you set everything up really sets the tone for how you're going to teach everything that year, and how the kids respond to you. So that's one thing that definitely was a shocker, I guess you could say. And you just kind of had to figure it out for yourself. And again, you have resources available to you, but it's definitely something that comes with experience for sure.
Um, are things different from year to year? I mean, obviously you have different students coming through your graces. Oh, I should actually ask first, what level PE do you teach, or what grade level?
I teach kindergarten through fourth grade.
Okay, so you have a lot of kids kind of coming through, and obviously your fourth graders move on. You get new kindergartens, and kids change from K to four. So, how do the years change from year to year, if at all?
It really depends. I recently switched jobs from more of an inner city school district to a more country, more affluent school district. And just between districts, there's been a big difference with the kids I've worked with. But also year to year, it really just depends. I mean, it depends if the kids are coming to school ready for school. A lot of the kindergartners can seem really young when they first come. Um, but I think within each district, it's fairly consistent, with the types of kids that come in. And it all has to do with the community, the families, the emphasis that the community puts on education, and all that kind of stuff.
Could you talk a little bit more about the different demographics you saw between the two schools and the
Mm.
pros and cons of each?
Sure. When I taught near Binghamton, there was a lot more poverty down there. There was a lot more people. And, this could be a whole other topic, in itself. But basically, when you have students that have a lack of resources at home, they come to school with, less what we call school readiness. And it really impacts their education across the board. be it in phys ed or reading or writing or whatever it is. And so, that was what I saw a lot down in the Binghamton area. Um, and it was just a much bigger school. There was just a lot more going on. It was, I would say, a little bit more chaotic. And unfortunately, schools that really need more money don't get more money because they're in a lower income area, and because of the whole tax system that we won't talk about. Unfortunately, the neediest schools receive the least amount of money. So flipping to where I work now in Lansing, like you said, outside of Ithaca, it's a lot more affluent. Families are a lot better off. There is still poverty. There's still rural versus urban poverty. So poverty is poverty, but it just, I notice a lot more families that are able to give their kids more, and families that are able to spend more time valuing education. Families might not have to work 3 or 4 jobs just to feed their family. So I've noticed a big difference in that, and it impacts the kids a lot. And the district, has a decent amount of funding, and that just it really makes a huge difference with the resources that we're able to give the kids. So yeah.
What about in terms of the attitude of the kids? You're talking about being school ready. What are
Mhm.
some of the more challenging uh, kids you've had to deal with? Obviously, I'm not expecting names or anything, but what are examples of really challenging situations you've had? And have you had any success stories that have come out of kids who are just like, oh, gee, I don't know if this kid's gonna make it?
Yeah, I worked a lot with those kids actually at my other school. You know, like I was saying before, when kids don't have a lot of resources or they're dealing with poverty or other stressors like that, it really affects their well-being emotionally, physically, and for anyone that's taken a psychology course, which I'm sure many freshmen will,
With me.
right? We all did. That honestly, that's one of the side note. One of the most important classes is psychology to understand how kids work. So just a side note on that, but it really does impact the kids. And when a kid is not being taken care of or doesn't have the nutrients they need, or maybe aren't getting enough time or quality time with their family or whatever it happens to be, it takes a toll on the kid. The kid is more stressed out, and it shows in school, and often it'll manifest itself in behavior problems. Acting out, or the biggest thing I see is just really not having any coping skills for things. And so, a little situation could seem like catastrophic to someone that doesn't have coping skills to deal with that. So you can see how that could turn ugly, in the classroom, with things like that. And, a lot of kids that come in not really used to having a structure, don't always do well with that. Eventually they catch on, and structure really is good for the kids, and that's ultimately what they're seeking. But again, they need that guidance to understand this is good for them, and it's okay, and to help them get through that. Um, but yeah, I've just giving them time. That was my biggest thing. At my other school, I kind of took on the kids that really struggled. It started with kids that were really impulsive, and in my in the phys ed realm, I would see it as physical impulsivity, where their body was just out of control. They could not control themselves in the environment, and the gym can be a very overstimulating place for kids that either have attention disorders or, like I was saying before, are just stressed out. They're always running on high alert, and certainly kids with disabilities too. And so I kind of targeted those kids and developed a recess program that was rewards based, and they would come in and play with me at recess, and it kind of became a little crew there for a few years. And so that was kind of like my big success story. I saw some growth with some of those kids, and I think honestly the biggest thing is they needed like a buddy. They needed an advocate, someone who was not going to give up on them no matter what. And these are the kids that got in trouble all the time. They're always in the office. They would get suspended. They would always get written up. And so I think to have me or someone like me there consistently every day saying, I care about you, we're going to do this together. I think that helped a lot. That made the biggest difference.
Um, you spoke a little bit about the importance of psychology and just now about the importance of being a buddy. What do you think is the best skill that someone going into an entry level PE job could have? Like the most valuable skill?
Gosh, I think teaching across the board is understanding why kids do the things they do. And, I kind of mentioned earlier also setting the tone with your management is huge, especially when you're working with more than a couple kids. You really have to, set the tone and make your expectations clear, um, be consistent and following through with those. And, part of that whole process is understanding how the kids work, and giving them some ownership of that too. A lot of teachers will have the kids help them develop their class rules and stuff like that, and that's pretty popular again among all the subjects. So, um, yeah, I would say that's probably the best skills to go in, very confident and setting your expectations very clear. But then being able to work with the kids. Not everyone's going to meet them. I mean, you're going to meet a student on the first day that is never going to meet your expectations. So you have to be able to adapt to that and find ways to make that kid successful, even though he's not going to necessarily be where all the other kids are at. So that's where that psychology piece comes in and helping them with that.
Um, what are parts of the job that you dislike? Like, spoiler alert to the kids out there, no job's perfect. So, what are things that on a daily basis that you have to deal with and you accept that you have to deal with them, but are just not fun things to deal with?
Working in a school definitely has its own challenges in itself. I mean, there's some wonderful aspects of working in a school. The schedule that you have, having breaks and this and that. But sometimes the scheduling can get to be a little much, at the elementary age, which, I think is probably one of the most challenging ages to work with just because you have to do so much for them and with them. Thinking about little kindergarten class, you literally have to take them everywhere and, be right there for every aspect of their day. And so the schedule can get a little tight sometimes if you have back to back to back classes and, you might have a really stressful class and a kid that just drove you nuts, and you have to get your act together because you have another class coming in, and it's really not their problem. So, that's one of the toughest things. Also, is just having to put on that face. And teaching is a little bit acting when you think about it. You have to put on this persona, and it's not that you're trying to fake your way through anything, but I just mean in the sense that you might be having a crappy day, but it doesn't really matter. You need to put on a happy face and you need to be energetic for your kids, especially in the PE realm. A non-energetic PE teacher is just not going to fly with the students. They're not really going to like your program. So you got to be passionate about what you're doing, no matter what's going on in your life. But yeah, I mean, that's stuff that you just get used to. It's just part of working with kids, and there's a lot of jobs that you have to put on that face for. So it's not unique to just teaching.
Yeah.
And the other thing, PE specific, I would say is, PE is not always the most valued subject, and you really have to be willing to be an advocate for your program and for your curriculum. I've been pigeonholed into the dodgeball, tag playing, old school gym teacher model, and I'm like, I haven't played dodgeball in years. I think it's a wonderful game, but it's not necessarily part of my curriculum. People are shocked when they find out that I actually have a curriculum that I teach,
Right.
and it varies from grade to grade. So that's one of the challenges just about PE in general is sticking up for your program and making sure people take you seriously. And I can give you a real time example if you'd like. That's
Yes.
happening tomorrow. So the gym being a big open space, and not all schools have gyms, depending on where you live in the country. Some schools just go outside all the time, and we're lucky to have an outdoor and an indoor space, which is great. However, there's lawn mowing that happens, and you never know. Your classroom isn't always your classroom when you're a PE teacher. For example, tomorrow we got an email that says, "Oh, by the way, we have to test the closing doors at 9:30. Hope you're planning on going outside." We're like, okay.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they walked into a third grade classroom and said that? That teacher would be pretty pissed off, and that
Yeah.
just wouldn't happen. So that's the kind of stuff that kind of falls by the wayside. You're overlooked as a true counterpart to your other teaching peers. And so you just got to keep advocating for yourself and um, keep pushing. But that's an example of
Yeah.
a real life situation.
Yeah, and for everybody out there, just to be clear, dodgeball really isn't a great game. It creates a lot of rivalry among students. Doesn't It's not a game that really makes sure all your students are developing. So that's why
Right,
it's not a great thing to have. Maybe as a special bonus at the end of the year, but it's definitely not something to lead off with for sure. But
right.
if you're into PE, you'll learn that in other classes here, so that's good.
Well,
What could you kind of walk us through what a typical day looks like for you?
sure. We start our morning off with a prep. Most teachers will get some kind of prep block where they get to prepare for their classes. And, um, another aspect of working with a school, you might not get enough time, but you just got to deal with it. But usually you'll have some time to prep. So my teaching partner and I will often meet during that time. We do have a bus duty or some kind of supervision duty that you have to do, which most teachers will have. And that you just, stand and watch the kids get off the bus or something like that. And in the high schools, I know they have lunch duty or whatever it happens to be, study hall. So that's a pretty common part of a teacher's day. And yeah, we get into teaching around 10 o'clock, and our classes are 50 minutes long. And we teach each grade level once a day. So we have third grade, fourth grade, second grade. We have a quick lunch break, and then we have kindergarten and first grade in the afternoon. And each student receives PE either twice a week if they're in the older grades, or every day if they're in the younger grades, but the classes are shorter. So it's kind of like boom, boom, boom. Or as soon as classes start, we're going straight through till 3 o'clock, pretty much.
Yeah. Uh, you know, Assuming there are some future PE teachers in the room, I know there are, or at least planning on it. Uh,
Awesome.
what would you say to those kids in terms of advocating for the career? Like, what makes it worth it for you?
Well, I guess my ultimate goal as a physical educator is to develop healthy individuals, and a term that's been thrown around, which some of you may be familiar with, is a physically literate individual, and that takes many forms. So part of that is educating them not just on eating healthy and exercising and what they can do in that sense, but also teaching them how to use their bodies. Um, and so, I said earlier, a lot of people are surprised to learn that I actually have a curriculum that I teach, and it's not just all fun and games, and that must be awesome. Like, yeah, it is awesome. I love what I do, but I work hard at it. I have lesson plans, and my units are progressive throughout the year, and so just kind of reminding people of that. I personally like to check in at the elementary school level. They uh, drop their kids off and pick them up, so they walk them everywhere. So that gives me a chance to connect with a classroom teacher, because at that level the kids are with the same teacher all day, except for when they go to their PE or music or art or whatever it is. And so I like to connect with them and kind of let them know what we learned that day, and that gives that teacher a little bit more sense of validity to our subject. And it's kind of a cool way to potentially tie in what they're learning in PE with what they may be learning in the classroom. Little cross curricular work there. So I think that's helpful, and just making sure you're a voice, at staff meetings, and just being involved with the greater school community. I think that's respected, and um, people will take you a little bit more seriously that way.
Yeah. Um, we You alluded to this just now and talked about earlier about having the recess program with kids and helping kids out. What has been the most rewarding experience thus far in your young although experienced career? I mean, you've been doing this for almost 10 years now, I think, or close to it.
Here,
So
yeah.
yeah. So what's been the most rewarding?
It's tough. It's at my other school, I was there for 9 years, so that's quite a long time to be in one spot. And um, I mean, the recess groups probably were the most rewarding, just because sure, kids come in, and I teach them my lesson, and I help them with what they're struggling with or whatever it happens to be related to the curriculum. But when you work with kids, you realize there's so much more going on with these kids. Very rarely do kids come to your classroom and sit down and are just like, "What do you got for me?" They come to school with a lot of baggage, no matter where you go, and more so in a school district that has a higher occurrence of poverty, like I was saying earlier. So I really valued getting that extra time to work with those kids. It's hard to develop a solid relationship with a kid just in the 30, 40, 50 minutes that you have them, and you don't see them every day. And so I really enjoy connecting with those kids every day. And that was huge for me, and that helped me in the classroom too. I had a better relationship for them. I was able to speak to them, more seriously about their behavior, for example, or whatever. Or if they were struggling, I was able to connect with them and help them out. Whereas if you have a kid that you have no relationship with, they're not going to respond to you as well. So that was in my career thus far. That was probably my biggest sense of pride was that program and really working with those kids. Um, and I'm looking forward to new adventures at my new school. It's an awesome school. I'm loving it there too. So I'm still working on building those relationships with those kids, but looking forward to it.
Yeah. Do you have any last words of wisdom for any future PE teachers out there?
Have fun. It's a great job. I love what I do, and take it seriously. Please be an advocate for the profession. I mean, PE is one of the most important subjects out there. If you don't have your health, you don't have much else. So join the movement and get involved, not just at your school. Get involved within your state. Get involved within the country if you can, and just really be a voice and really teach the kids and inspire them to want to be healthy, responsible citizens. And yeah, just be passionate, man. That's what it's all about. If you don't like what you do, then you're going to be not so happy, and the kids aren't going to be either. So, as you choose your future paths, make sure you're doing something that you really enjoy doing and that you can see yourself doing for a long time.
Nice.
Sure.
Well, Melissa, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us about your career and your profession, and we'll have your contact information available if anybody has questions. So thanks for everything.
You got it. Thanks, guys.